You're listening to Honey, We Made a Disney Podcast. Two friends since we became Mrs. Saunders' favorite class. Now Dad's reliving the Disney movies we grew up on with our own kids. I'm Eddie Ferguson.
And I'm JB Waggoner. And on today's episode, we discover that this is the way, some of the time, as we review season 3 of The Mandalorian. But first, Eddie, how are you and the family doing?
We are doing good. We have had a solid week of no sicknesses.
Miracle.
Everybody is doing all right. Knock on wood, which is a lot of fun. It's very hot here. This is like the tail end of their summer, so think August, which also means there's water shortages. So they turn off our water every day.
Like at a specific time?
It's just kind of random. It's like every 6 to 10. It's about 6 to 10 hours a day, depending.
So how do you live with that?
So we have a whole row of like big jugs of water that we keep ready to go, and then
like Katrina, like hurricane level jugs of water.
Sure. And then we bathe our kids in the swimming pool. Why not? What else would you do? We keep it heavily chlorinated. That'll kill everything off of them. So yes, no, we're navigating all of those fun things, but yeah, we'll be happy. Usually mid-May, it'll all start coming back to normal.
So what's the random thing you didn't realize that you need water for?
It's all the little things. It's like going to brush your teeth and you're like, oh, I've got to go get a cup of water. The more, the necessities of life that are a little, less pleasant to discuss on a Disney podcast. You have to time those and have a very intentional strategy.
Do you have a chart?
Those things
do you have a chart or a flow chart?
No pun intended. We do not. That might become necessary. So yes, these are the fun things that we are currently navigating with 3 little ones in tow that don't understand why this.
Daddy, why is the water not working?
Why is this not?
Did we not pay the water bill? What's going on?
They're fine because it means less baths and all of that stuff.
We had a random night the other night where my wife was up with our child and with a new baby, and she just randomly texted me, the water's not running. And it was 3 a.m. and I woke it up at like 4. And immediately I'm like, okay, now I have to get up and solve this crisis that we're having right now. And I go out to the water main, come back inside, look around. I don't even know what else is going on. And by the time I had seen her text, which she had sent like an hour beforehand, and got up, went around, looked around, got outside, tried to look around and see if the water was something. Then I said, water main's on. There's nothing. They didn't come turn it off. And she's like, oh, there's other people in the neighborhood. Other people are also saying theirs is out too. And I was just like, okay, now I go back to sleep. There we go.
The crisis in the middle of the night, especially with a young baby, it fills you with adrenaline. You're like, I gotta solve this. Da da da. Boom. Yeah.
Off a cliff. Yes.
Off a cliff. It is. But enough about me and all of our crazy stories. Last week, the highly anticipated new show that JB has been eager to get his hands on and just sink his teeth into a good, heart-throbbing, pull at your heartstrings remodel show, Renovations with Jeremy Renner, premiered with 4 or 5 episodes on Disney Plus. JB, how quickly did you stay up till 12:01 midnight to watch this new gem of a Disney Plus show?
If we hadn't just had a new baby, 100% I would have.
Playing the baby card, are we?
Because this is the problem now. We don't have our right at 8 p.m.
You have not
kids to sleep and get to watch whatever we as adults want to watch. We don't have that anymore. Not for the foreseeable future.
You're in the all-consuming survive the next 10 minutes mode.
It's a miracle. The reason we were able to do this podcast right now is because your wife is the window. Well, but it's also, this is the window from putting the kids down to our daughter, like feeding time, straight into then my wife can go to bed and then I take over. Like, that's the only reason we even have this podcast right now. But we haven't had our own time to go watch this show yet. So it's sad. It's upsetting. I feel like I let you down because I think you were excited to talk about this. You threw this on there, assuming I had already watched it when I hadn't. And I don't know. I'll have to ask. I'll text my wife right now while we're sitting here and going, if I watch this on my own tonight during my session with like holding our daughter, would I get in trouble, or is this something that she was waiting on?
It is. It's everything you would expect it to be. It's got a little clunkiness, you know. I think at times Jeremy Renner can be a bit stiff on like scripted natural moments, you know what I mean? But there is let's just call him a sidekick character that you are going to just absolutely love.
I couldn't tell if you were going to say love or hate.
No, I think you're going to absolutely love him. For me, he makes the show. If this guy wasn't in it, I would be like, dead. I don't want to. But this guy, it's like, okay, there's the spice of life just kind of thrown in there.
Wasn't this where what's his name, Mackie from Falcon and the Winter Soldier? Is he the sidekick that you're talking about? I saw him in the trailer.
No. So Jeremy Renner's like business partner, best friend, or whatever. He's in this, and then the celebrity just kind of like comes in at the last minute to help like launch the thing. At least in the ones I saw. So. Mackie, there's several different ones. Vanessa Hudgens, for you big High School Musical fans. She's one of the celebrities that pops in. So
I think this will be the start of something new, Eddie, that I'm gonna love, enjoy watching. I'm sorry that I disappointed you in this moment that I hadn't already watched all the episodes.
I'm just sad that we're not all in this together.
Worlds apart.
Did you hear what I did there?
Yep.
Did you hear it?
Also, speaking of, did you see what we did there? What happened at the Fantasmic in Orange County at Disneyland? Yeah. What happened, Eddie?
So what's funny is this is the second time Maleficent the Dragon has caught on fire. The first time was in one of the parades through Disney World a number of years ago. And then now this prop has it burst into and it charred like a huge section of the set. And now Disney has suspended all uses of that fire device in any of their parks around the world until they can figure out the cause for it.
How many things are using this fire device? That's one of my first questions.
That's what I want to know. Well, they do use a lot of fire. I mean, there's a lot of good, pyrotechnic elements like that where they just shoot the big flame cannons or whatever. So I would imagine it's quite a bit.
I think they use it probably all over, like It's a Small World and
teacups
and stuff like that. Just flamethrowers everywhere. It consumed the whole thing. It was insane.
Yeah, the pictures, if it now that everybody is safe and everybody's okay, it's kind of hysterical.
Yeah.
How the dragon is like KFC fried. I mean, it is crisp.
Intense. I saw it was of course at night. So all the photos and videos of just this ball of fire is all you can see. And initially the reports I heard was there's a fire on Tom Sawyer Island. What is happening? And then it's the dragon caught fire, which is amazing and great. But it is a little disheartening because I'm sure a lot of people, we never really stuck around for Phantasmic that often. We might have done it once, but then they also didn't have it for a while. Then they brought it back. And it was always at the time when we were dead to the world at the park and we're like, let's just go home. So there's a part of me
I do have photo proof of them being dead to the world if you all would like to see said photo proof.
I think this was also the photo that you sent a year later when you had kids.
Yes.
And then you were like, I totally understand.
We get it now.
What is happening here? But yeah, I am sad for all the people who this is their
Phantasmic
big thing.
is a great show.
Yeah.
One of the best. It is also at Disney World at Hollywood Studios where we've seen it a number of times. And we even watch the like YouTube recordings of it. And I should send you this video. Lewis will stand. There's a section of the show where it is Sorcerer Mickey, you know, with the red robe and the blue hat with the stars. And Mickey is like making magically like the water fountains all like go up and everything. And he'll do like this big swoosh of his arms and stuff. Lewis always gets up during that section, stands as close to the TV as he can, and mimics every hand motion of Mickey during it all. So yes, sad for this because Phantasmic is a really great show. It's pretty fantastic. But speaking of things not fantastic coming out of Disney,
love the segment.
No, you sent me a very interesting article that speaks to something that we talk about a lot here in our reviews. If you have been listening to our podcast at all, you will have heard us kind of pick up on the theme of like a villain. Like a movie is really only as strong as its villain and having that kind of key character in it. And you sent a very interesting article discussing the decline of villains, of a strong antagonist, and how Disney has been adopting more of kind of the morally ambiguity of their villains, kind of empathizing with them a little bit, and just kind of reflecting on how that has hurt them from a story perspective.
Yes, this article that I first read in Disney Dining, but it was actually a response to a Newsweek article. This all centers around this idea of we grew up with movies and with stories that had very clear good versus evil.
Yep. You
had very specifically these bad guys, these good guys, to the point where if they're purple, they're probably a bad guy most of the time. If it's just that color for some reason they've like really honed in on. And you could say, oh, that's boring. Oh, that's cheesy. Oh, we're seeing it coming where everything's going. That might be true. But you know what? These are stories primarily for children. So maybe there's clues we're giving people on how to live their life. Anyways, but so this article really goes into the fact that of late, a lot of Disney movies have gone away from good versus evil to what they called the dreaded altar of nuance.
So true.
It's kind of funny, just what they go, but they make a great case that I think if you look back and go, who are the villains in the stories that we give really high ratings to versus not so high ratings to? And it is interesting. Like one of my biggest criteria is who is the villain, who's the antagonist. Am I bought in on this story of them overcoming them and beating them? And am I scared that they're not going to do that? And if you look back at a lot of these stories now, the quote unquote bad guy is kind of a weird psychological thing. And nuance is a great word for it. Because if you look at some of the stories, even ones that I kind of like Encanto, I don't know that the story is as great as the music and the artistry and all that kind of stuff, but it's like the matriarch kind of is, or she is, the hero is the villain the whole entire time. That's kind of odd. Turning red, puberty, like that's it. Or the mother is it. Strange World. I never saw Strange World, but through all the trailers, the reason I didn't want to go see it, other than like it just was, I didn't know who they were fighting. They had no sort of outside person that would there. It kind of was the world, but there was no central bad person in this. And then let's get to Frozen. There's not really any bad person except for Elsa. Elsa is kind of her own villain, causing all of these issues in the story. And it's just kind of weird. Like,
well, you've got Frozen, the first Frozen, where Hans is kind of the bad guy.
At the very end, though.
At the very end,
very end.
None of his... So here's the key, right? If you are in a battle of good and evil, your villain is what's causing the conflict that the protagonist has to overcome in conquering evil with good, right? That's the main driving point of the story is good must rise up to defeat evil. You would not have a story whatsoever if Scar was not in The Lion King. He is the impetus for all of this, right? Ursula, Jafar, all of them. You gotta have that villain or you don't have a story. If you take Hans out of the story,
you get Frozen too.
You get Frozen too, right? Yeah. And I love I mean, like at the very end, there's that moment where like, okay, you don't get the love, sacrificial love of a sister for a sister if it wasn't for the Hans moment. Okay. But really, like, it wasn't necessary. Then you get to Frozen 2, and who's the bad guy? Grandpa's the bad guy, right?
Yeah.
Like,
family.
He's the bad.
There's so many.
That's the other one is it's like Turning Red, mom's the bad guy. Frozen 2, grandpa's the bad guy. Encanto, grandma's the bad guy. So like family is just all bad. And what's interesting is like, okay, I could get behind nuance if it was a little bit of it, right? Like it's called nuanced for a reason because it's, wait for it, nuanced, right? Like when you're doing every single movie like this, it is no longer nuanced. It is agenda. You know, it's pushing something. And I think that's what's so hard. Like a good example of nuance, I would say, is Inside Out. We don't have a true antagonist, but it works. It leans into the nuance of what that story's antagonist is, which is the emotions of growing up and dealing with all of that. And they do a good job of playing with it and making that lighthearted and understandable. And some of these other ones that we just keep getting, it's too much.
I have a hot take now, thinking about this right now. Inside Out is one of my favorite, probably my favorite Pixar movie. And at the same time, I don't know that my kids really like it.
Correct.
My kids don't really go out of their way to want to watch it. And what's so emotionally charging, like in a good way for me on that story, is the revelation of a very, very hard thing to grasp, which is joy and sadness coexisting in the same moment. That is a very difficult thing to understand that even me as an adult, I'm having to learn. And so I kind of have to say, maybe Inside Out is also a part of this issue as well, where obviously we loved it and feel like it's one of the best things we've seen because we've seen all these stories. But at the same time, there's not really an antagonist. The world is falling apart. So we feel that and we feel for her. Sure. But there isn't somebody driving that other than kind of Joy accidentally herself doing it. So, I mean, you got to kind of throw that one in there as well, as that's kind of a part of the problem. Even though I enjoyed it, I don't know that there is, it kind of fits what we've been talking about here.
No, I was thinking about a more recent Pixar movie that I also really enjoy, and that's Luca. Like I think it's a fantastic story. And they do have an antagonist in it. His name is escaping me. The snotty guy who runs around on the Vespa with the sweater.
Oh, the Vespa kid. I hate that kid.
Yeah.
They did.
They kind of have. That's not the driving force per se. It's more of the overcoming family restrictions, right? That is kind of the main thing there in it all. But they do have a little bit of an antagonist that pushes along that storyline of them going through the cup and the race and all of those types of things. But even that, I would say, is weaker, and we haven't really seen a strong villain, I would say, since Dr. Facilier in Princess and the Frog. The article does a good job of pointing out even like Professor Callahan in Big Hero 6, which I again really like the story. But even that, like you're getting more of a nuanced reason and all of those different things.
And he's hidden the entire time until the end. You get a shadow character that is then revealed to be him. Yeah, I would kind of agree with that. But this was
also a part of the whole like, oh, twist, he's the villain. Like with Hans, with Professor Callahan, and then and my least favorite, and the Dawn Bellwether, the little lamb in Zootopia. Again, there was kind of another one there where you're like, this is a little.
I will stand up a little bit for Luca because of the fact that kid is so annoying and so conniving. And I think they did a good job with him because he is driving a lot of that forward. Overall, it's the parents and it's the quote unquote ignorant townsfolk that are kind of the kind of danger in it. But then they do bring in that kid, and that does kind of drive it to a better place, much more visceral place. Without him, I think it would have been a way worse film. But you do get that kid that everybody wants to beat in there. Yeah. But then they're kind of hold on to a secret the entire time. So the secret getting out kind of is driving some of that tension as well. And the trailer now is playing as I've got it pulled up on IMDb, and now the cat is on my head, and I'm like, okay, how do we also say it's somehow the cat? I thought this was such a fascinating article. It, like we've said it over and over again. And what does Lewis say every time a movie starts?
Who's the bad guy? Is he the bad guy? Is he the bad guy? And I didn't teach him this or anything. Like, it's just his natural, is he the bad guy? And it's funny now, having read the article you sent, I've gone back and just thought about all of this, especially more Lewis, because he's a little bit older. Eileen, she could just watch Frozen on repeat because she loves the princesses. But for Lewis, he's more and more gravitating towards these older Disney movies. He loves The Lion King. He loves Tarzan. Like, these are the ones that he wants to go back and watch more, more and more. Not some of the more newer things. What he wants to do is he wants to go watch Mario Brothers again.
Get some more time with Bowser.
And he doesn't understand why we can't just go to the big screen all the time. Daddy, can we go to that place when we watch it on the big screen?
The big screen? That's adorable.
No, like that costs a lot of money. And speaking of, like, I think we're seeing real life numbers on why a strong story with straightforward antagonist, like a story kids and adults can follow along. I mean, Super Mario Brothers is about to hit $1 billion. This has the potential of becoming the highest grossing animated film.
And every day I wish that I would have just said it was going to be the highest grossing movie of the year, because it probably will end up being that.
It probably will be.
We'll see some of the Marvel films coming out. We'll see if they top it. It'll be very interesting to see if there's any reaction to this in the next 3 to 5 years as people start writing the next stories that we're going to see come out in 3 or 4 years. Like, what will those stories look like and sound like?
Well, it was interesting. Back at the beginning of the month, Disney had their annual shareholders meeting that was virtual. Shareholders could call in and ask questions of Bob Iger, and a shareholder asked a much more pointed and loaded question of him. I mean, but this is a shareholder, and like you have to be somewhat of a substantial shareholder to be able to ask a question at these things. And he pretty much was like, "When are you going to stop pushing agendas and just make movies that make money?"
Wow.
And I mean, like it was a very long. I can send you the clip. It was quite lengthy, and Iger had to tiptoe all around it
because he doesn't want to tick off his own workers who feel very strongly about it too. Yeah.
And it's like, but you and I have talked about this, and I think this is a good point. Even from our perspective, you and I don't enjoy most Christian movies.
Most, yeah. But I can't think of any right now that I actually enjoy.
Honestly, like 99, I can't even think of one that I enjoy. And that's because anytime you are more concerned about an agenda of pushing some type of message, storytelling suffers. You don't tell as good of a story as if you just think about the characters, the structure, what's the drama, what is moving this along. So I would say, this isn't just secluded to one ideology. It's in principle like agenda is going to quench creativity.
That sounds like it should be on a bumper cigarette. Like that. Agenda
quenches creativity.
Quenches creativity. You got to come up with another.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's
crappy agendas quench creativity. We'll workshop it a little bit. We'll work
on it. We'll work on it. Yeah.
Well, that's it for our Disney news this week. I had
our rants.
Our rants. It was mostly a rant time. But we just thought that would be a good conversation based on all the different conversations we've had over all the previous films that we've looked at as we go through, and we're almost done, getting real close, almost to the final year of all the movies, the Disney movies that came out between 1987, 88, and 2005, aka our childhood. So we got another one on here coming up that we're actually going to take a pause this week as we are reviewing all of the shows that have been launching on Disney Plus that are worth talking about, the Marvel shows, the
good caveat worth talking about.
Yes. Still waiting for Eddie to come around on Miss Marvel, but we'll see if that ever happens or if I ever come back around on it. I think that's going to be my soul, Eddie. That's going to be my soul that
that you just have to hold on to it.
I have to hold on to it. I don't even care anymore at this point. I'm done with it. So we're going to take a little bit of a break, but we're going to do something a little bit differently as we review The Mandalorian Season 3.
Cue the Disney sound effect.
Okay, we're not going to do the IMDb description because it hasn't changed since the first season that we did this, and they don't give new IMDb descriptions for each of the seasons. So if you don't know what this show is about, that's on you, and you probably aren't even listening to this show anyways. But Eddie, we had to wait so long for this. It was like, what, 2 years or longer?
Yeah.
Before we were able to finally get this very season. I remember a year ago expecting a season to come out, and for some odd reason, I didn't get the memo that we weren't going to get it at all.
Season 2 concluded December 18th, 2020.
We were still in lockdown.
We were,
a version of lockdown.
And season 3 premiered March 1st, 2020.
There were no vaccines yet. There were no boosters out there.
Nothing.
Not many people going on vacations.
Nothing,
that they would talk about. That's the last time that we had anything new of the Mandalorian season. We got to also throw in there. I guess we got a little. Maybe this is why I kind of made it through, because we got a little bit of a taste in Boba Fett. We got those 2.5 episodes that kind of gave us a taste for it, but
Yeah, and I mean that kind of helped. It felt weird though in the middle of Boba Fett because it was
weird.
Nothing to do with the show. Yeah, and I think in general, we did a review of Boba Fett. Like we were so mixed about it. We love the overall
We were not mixed about it, Eddie. It was trash until
the last episode,
the Mandalorian episodes.
But no. And this is why I say mixed, because we said, yes, it was trash, except for Mandalorian episodes. And then the final episode was really cool and a lot of fun. Like, come on, Boba Fett riding the Rancor, like, okay. Mixed, leaning towards the negative is what I would say on that. But to wait this long for Mandalorian, my expectations were high.
Yes.
And they were not met.
No. It was a rough season. Not one of the better seasons that they've had.
Honestly, when it was like, oh, this is the last episode, I was like, really? Like, we're already at the end? Like, nothing's happened. That's what felt so weird, is I'm like, I don't know what this season, like, I think this season was about the Mandalorians taking Mandalore back.
Which we kind of knew based off the ending of the previous season, some of the rumblings, sure. What we had kind of seen in the whole where the I can never remember her name. The lady that's got the hammer and she's like the one in charge. The armorer. I'm going to forget her name all throughout this. So you're just going to have that ready on copy paste. It's like ready to hit that button. But the armorer in the episodes during Boba Fett, like she kind of sets it up. Like, you got to go into the waters. You got to be redeemed because you've taken your helmet off. So we kind of knew that's where it was going. It was just their execution of it was just a mess. It was just all over the place. It was frankly a little bit underwhelming when they finally got there, and they got there fast. They got there in the second episode, and they're like, oh, this place isn't as bad as we thought. Okay, I guess I'm going to go to the mines now. Okay.
And he just walks down. Yeah.
He just walks into it. I know that there was the whole cyborg issue and getting pulled down in the water really fast, but nothing was pulling him. That's kind of weird. I got the sense really quickly, like episode 2 or 3, that really this was almost like a segue season. Like, I feel like they're setting up bo-katan to take the reins, not only of Mandalore, but also potentially the actual show. Like, they've really elevated her. She's in more of this film probably than Din is by Din Djarin by the end of this thing. Definitely more than Grogu is. Like, Grogu definitely, after the first couple episodes, goes to the back burner until he's got some great moments at the very, very end, which we will cover. But overall, I was with you. I was such mixed. It was better than Boba Fett. It might have been better than 80% of Obi-Wan up until the end when they got some really good scenes. But we got to say the bottom of the barrel, like the worst thing that probably has happened in all of Star Wars, is that Guns for Hire episode 6 with Jack Black and Lizzo. I think it might be it's worse than Jar Jar Binks to me. What say ye? I hated every second of it until they then jumped back into with axe wolves and everything like that at the very end. Like, every second spent on there was horrible.
I was just lost. I don't know if I had the same like visceral, like, I hate this type of feeling like you did, but like the whole episode, it just didn't, like, I was kind of dazed and confused by it. I love Christopher Lloyd. I enjoyed him kind of popping up. I think it was cheapened by the fact that you had Jack Black and Lizzo. We were like, this is like an episode of 3 extended cameos. Like, come on, we've got 3 extended cameos here.
This also
Nobody's really paying a character.
100%. They were playing themselves.
And don't get me wrong, like, I love Jack Black. Like, and back to Super Mario Brothers, he is phenomenal as Bowser. Like, you lose the fact that it's Jack Black. He does that role so well.
But this
just felt like weird. It just felt like cameos, and I don't understand why this had to happen. You know, it's like, oh, and then there's the weird. For me, the hardest part of the whole episode was the very end when they go out to the other Mandalorians, and it's like, well, we can't follow you because you don't have the Darksaber. And Din Djarin's like, well, technically, on this technicality and based off of this, and she does have it. It's like, what? Like, that's how you become the leader of the Mandalorians? Okay, yeah, but
I've been waiting 8 weeks, 7 weeks to talk about
We've
this.
not talked about Mandalorian at all. We've held this to this moment.
But I've been waiting for this moment because I had a conversation with a few people back at the very beginning of this whole series when they were like, wait, or not the whole series, but episode 2, when he gets disarmed, loses the Darksaber from the cyborg, and then gets put into a cage, and then she picks it up and saves him from it. Bo-Katan does when Grogu goes and gets her and comes back. And in that moment, after watching the episode, it was like, wait a minute, so doesn't she get the Darksaber now? And everyone's like, no, that's not how it works. It wasn't in battle. I'm like, well, the cyborg disarmed her and then she killed the cyborg, so shouldn't she get it? Yeah. And the whole time they're like, no. And everyone went on with their lives, just like moving on with their lives, and everything's back to status quo. And so then when he does that whole speech about the technicality, I was like, oh, I was right the whole freaking time. And at the same time, I was both elated that I was right, because I never see any of this stuff that other people don't see. But at the same time, I'm like, this is a really weird way for her to get it to where it's like, okay, I guess this was like the one way I don't think the writers wanted to put Bo-Katan and Din fighting each other. I don't think they wanted that. Yeah. The fans didn't want that. So they're like, we can't do this. So we got to kind of backdoor this thing. But you're right. It was weird. But back to that episode.
Hold on. What it reminded me of was Harry and the Elder Wand.
Ooh.
But Harry and the Elder Wand, for whatever reason, worked. It had like this deep payoff moment. And in part, I wonder if it's like, because in that same moment, like, you realize Harry has all the Deathly Hallows. Like
there were other things happening too.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, in that moment, that clicks and
it was visually stunning. Like, they're coming at each other and the wand won't go, and it's the blazes and the fire and all of stuff. This was like a council meeting.
Yes. Yes. So yeah, that episode for me, it just kind of like we were slowly building up air, and then it just like let it all out. It was like, and I don't feel like it got it back. Especially, I struggled deeply with even like the 3rd episode, The Convert, where we spent half the episode on Coruscant with Dr. Pershing and this chica that we don't even know.
Elia Kane. Sorry, just hard pass on that episode. That was if that would have been the worst if Guns for Hire hadn't happened. But it sounds like that was worse for you.
Well, and it was such deadpan acting. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was just like, I'm sorry. Story weak. We're lost. We don't get all of this. Like, it's supposed to be like brothers in arms and like, what did we miss? All this. I'm not feeling any of that. The acting is just weird, just so deadpan the whole way through. And this is the same thing I was screaming at the screen the whole time through Obi-Wan. It's called The Mandalorian. Same with Boba Fett. It's called Boba Fett. Like, why can't they just, like, I just want to be like, sit on your hands. Just sit on your hands and tell us a Mandalorian story. Tell us a Boba Fett story. Tell us an Obi-Wan Kenobi story. Stop going off on these weird tangents that don't pay off. They're not paying off.
It's almost like in the West Wing season 6 when Amy ties Josh to the chair and just says, just sit here and watch the news unravel. That's what I felt in here. And what made it even worse is the first scene of that whole episode is great. And you get the destruction of Bo-Katan's castle, and it's so sad, and there's dogfighting and so amazing. Then it's on Coruscant and you're with Dr. Pershing, which I was interested. I was like, oh, that's the guy from season 1 that we've heard nothing from this entire time. We get him for one episode. It's lame. And then he is tortured and they move on. I'm like, that's it? That's really what you're going to bring us back here just to set up Elia Kane is, oh, she's on the other side. She's consequential because she like has some moments throughout, but she is not worth all of that. I don't know
if I would say consequential. Like, it's just these brief little, like, oh, she pushes the story. Oh, Moff Gideon. Oh, okay. And then that, like,
let me do this. Let me bring him back. Yeah, she moved a couple plot points along, but you could have rewritten that with anything else, and it would have been
any other way.
We didn't even need it at all. Honestly, we didn't need Tiva going to ask for the help of the Colonel with Tim Meadows, which again, just Tim Meadows being Tim Meadows. It's interesting how many comedians they have in this show. Some of them work and a lot of them don't. And it's kind of funny.
Bill Burr works amazing.
Yeah, he did great. Seasons. Jack Black, not so much, because you're just taking, that's the thing that annoyed me with 6. It took me out of the world.
Yes.
Like, I'm getting a Jack Black impersonate. I'm getting a Jack Black moment right now. I'm getting Lizzo, who probably hasn't ever acted before in this. Honestly, Christopher Lloyd took me completely out of it too. I was just like, he's not. It's past. It's past, man. I'm sorry. This wasn't really for you. And then we're back into the action. And so I loved that someone on Twitter or YouTube made a supercut, and they're like, "This is how you watch episode 3," and they hyperspace out and then they come back in the rest of the rest of it. That was about episode 3. Sorry, I'm jumping around to my 2 worst favorites. But Eddie, what did you love about this? What did you enjoy from this series, this season?
It's fun to get a deeper glimpse into the kind of the Mandalorian culture.
Sure.
I kind of liked the whole little, like, going and the large raptor steals the kid, like that episode.
That's a fun episode.
That was a fun episode. That was really cool. And you get a little, and you see kind of Bo-Katan wrestling with the way, the creed, that was really cool. It really
sets up her arc. Like, not only is she kind of fallen into the group because she saved Din and got in the waters, but now she's actually like engaging with the group, and that it totally sets up them when they're called to help the people of Navarro. Her then being the reason kind of they choose to go do that because she saved my son, let's go help these people over here.
Yep.
It's a great, but it's funny. That was the shortest episode of maybe the entire series. It was 30 minutes or something, 25 minutes. It was so short.
Super. And it felt even shorter because the episode before that was like an hour long because it had to set up all of the weird Dr. Pershing, Elia Kane stuff.
Oh, it was the episode that would never end.
Yeah, I'm just going, this keeps going. I also like the episode, The Pirate. You've got the pirates who come and try and take over Navarro. That kind of had some interesting fight sequences and everything in that.
Other than the weird Treebeard, like bad guy that was like laughable.
Well, I was like, yes, Treebeard, but also Davy Jones from Pirates of the Caribbean. Like, did you just steal the CGI files from that and just change the color? Because that kind of felt like that at times. The last 2 episodes, I got into like the end of the second, like the 7th episode, when you've got like the
Praetorian Guard and stuff.
The Praetorian Guard, yeah, all of those things kind of going on.
Didn't capture,
and then all of that is really good. Even the last episode, where obviously, this was what they were going towards and building up to. I thought it was good. I don't think it had the same level of payoff as I felt like they were trying to make it have. Does that make sense at all? Like, it definitely, okay, they're making this big, this again, but I don't know if I'm fully there, and I don't know why.
You mean the fact that they have given you no indication that he's doing cloning this entire time, and then just throw that into a random hallway where they're like, oh, and by the way, since the clones are here, I'm just going to go ahead and destroy all of them and move on.
I'll push back on that because, they talked about cloning in season 1 because that's why they were going after Grogu. We found out that. And then in season 2 on Navarro, we find his Moff Gideon's former base that had those same cloning capsules.
It wasn't set up. Like, it was kind of like, oh yeah, remember this? And then he destroys it, and then he moves on, and then he's like, you destroyed all my things, and I was going to put the Force in there. It wasn't like an integral part of the story, and like it could have been much bigger. Like, what if there were 7 Moff Gideons, 13 Moff Gideons? What would happen to the world? No, it's just like he's like on his way. There's like, oh, we probably shouldn't want this, and just destroys all of it and then moves on. It wasn't like an integral part of the story leading to that moment.
Well, and I think part of that is because you spent the whole season going, they were trying to like build this mystery and whisper, is Moff Gideon back? You find the transport ship that should have taken him to trial, all of these different things, but you really don't see Moff Gideon until the end of this. You see him at that like council meeting before, but I think they could have just had a few more run-ins.
Yes,
between Moff Gideon,
that's a great way,
and Din Djarin to build this up a little bit more. It felt unearned. It's like, oh, he's back.
So in the positive category, I would say that the Beskar Stormtrooper suits, that was a win. That was awesome. They still shoot like Stormtroopers, but which I loved. I love the fact that they kept that, but those outfits were great. The fact that they were kind of indestructible to some degree also brought that level up. Love seeing the Proletarian Guard more. In this, we only got them for a hot second in The Last Jedi, which also was a great scene with them. Where are you at with Grogu driving the protocol droid? Because there were moments where I loved it and other moments where I'm like, this might be kind of annoying, but the yes/no button was great. Making that, he hasn't really talked this entire time, and then he's using the yes/no button on there. No.
Yes, I agree. I'm right there with you. Like, yeah, there's definitely a few moments you're like, what's going on here? But for the most part, I think the yes/no button saved that whole concept there. But you get a lot of father-son type of moments in this. But it's not until the very, very end that you get like a Grogu moment, where I felt like in the other seasons,
you got moments throughout.
You got a lot of moments where like, oh, Grogu. Here it just, I don't know. That in the swivel chair in the very first episode.
He really stole some of the first couple of episodes. You're like, wow, we're getting a lot of him. That's because they're going to starve us from him for the rest of a lot of the season. The best, though, for sure, is when he is with when he's with all of the little creatures and they're trying to build the protocol droid, and he's hugging them and they're bad baby. I love that they the Unsulans who Babu Freaks people. Yes. And the fact that they're losing their mind over him because they're like kind of annoyed / frightened by him, and he's just wanting to give them hugs. It's adorable. It's some of the best moments.
The show has done a good job throughout its run of giving some fan service, like, come on, just give the little moments, like the little mouse droid in the final episode. And then all of the mouse droids come and like circle them around and they can't really do anything, but they're trying. For me, that was probably one of my favorite sequences of the whole season, was the R2 droid like trying to hack into the schematics and the mouse droids and everything. To me, that was just so reminiscent of classic Star Wars. Even though it's so brief, I'm like, I'm deeply enjoying this so much more than, like the whole Guns for Hire episode. Question for you. Did you get to the very end and think, this is it?
Yes. The way that they ended this, where it's basically he's kind of
retired.
It's not he's retired. He's going into suburbia.
Yeah.
He's moving to the suburbs with his son, and he's just going to raise his kid. He's going to do a couple of things here and there, but throughout this entire time, I'm like, they're setting up bo-katan to take over. Like, I would not be shocked at all if most of next season is her story continued with maybe Grogu and Mando come in for a hot second and then bounce back out. I could totally see that happening in this. And what's interesting is even though I really was so disappointed in most of this season, I really like bo-katan, and I love the actress that does it, that plays her. I thought it was really, really good what she did. And that's what I think also makes me sad, is this could have been so much better had it just been more intentionality behind it and not so much just wandering and meandering through all of this. I've heard some people say that the reason that it was this way is because they really didn't have enough to make this 8 episodes. And so they had to really stretch it to make it work. And I kind of believe that, but I feel like they could have done a lot more on Mandalore, like the search to get there, to get in there, a brigade keeping them from getting, like, they just got there so fast.
Why isn't it in the second episode, we don't have some type of run-in on Mandalore with Moff Gideon?
Yes.
Like, they sneak in, they're trying to, like, blah, 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 blah. And you have some type of big battle within the second or third. And then the whole season is built around, we have to take back Mandalore from Moff Gideon.
You'd think.
Because the whole season, you're just thinking, well, it's this planet in disarray and they got to go. It's a fixer-upper, like that's what they got to do. This is a fixer-upper planet we got to do. No, you could have done such a stronger story. Again, I think we're going back to our article before. Put your villain up front. Don't make it nuanced. That whole episode with the doctor and what's her name, is so nuanced and this and that and everything. Are they not? Like, even her intentions in doing, they're like, okay, that's evil, but why? Like, just give me a bad guy right up the front. Let's make that the driving point of this season. Of we've got to take back Mandalore from Moff Gideon. And the whole thing about her surrendering to Moff Gideon is buried in the middle to the second to last episode. Like, when she's like, give me that at the beginning. That changes her whole character arc. And I only get that arc for an episode and a half.
The fact that she gave up, gave it up. Yep.
Why did you bury the lead on that one?
We could have had that as a flashback in the first one, and just maybe they were assuming people have seen all of the Clone Wars and the Rebels and all that kind of stuff. But no, I agree with you.
Have they even announced another season?
I think they are. I think they are doing another season as we kind of look this up right here. But as far as I know, there's nothing saying that they're not going to do more seasons. I think it's going to be, what is that going to be?
It is a fourth season is in development. Interconnected spin-off series, The Book of Boba Fett, Ahsoka, and Skeleton Crew will expand the Mandalorian's time frame. Oh, with an untitled feature film directed by Filoni. We can't forget that.
I think that's the one where he's going to bring all of the Mandalorian season, like worlds all together.
Yeah, this is saying it is the conclusion to the interconnected stories.
Okay. Well, we will get more as we know more about it. But that's the season 3 recap.
It was hard. It was hard. I want to love this. I had such high expectations, and
still better than Boba Fett, but man,
yeah.
At least we got 3 movies to look forward to, Eddie. Got 3 more movies to look forward to. Got Skeleton Crew. Got a lot of.
We have another
Ahsoka.
season of Andor. We have another season of Andor.
Ooh, when does that one come out? That's what I want to know.
It's not for another like year and a half.
Ugh.
So they're doing the same thing that they did with The Mandalorian.
Last question. Do you think that this season was even worse because we got Andor and it was so good? Or do you think that Andor being so as good as it was had no effect on our feelings about this show? Like, were you sitting there going, man, for the only time I ever thought, man, Andor did this way better was everything on Coruscant.
Correct.
Everything on Coruscant was way worse.
I would say that this has now just fully become a roller coaster ride between Obi-Wan and Boba Fett, first seasons of Mandalorian, then, and we're not even touching the movies. It's just up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. So now the next one to come out is what? Skeleton Crew, Ahsoka. So maybe this will be, we're back up on the high side of things. Who knows?
We shall see.
We shall see. And with that, your life has been forever changed by another episode of Honey, We Made a Disney Podcast.
Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to your other favorite podcasts. And while you're there, you know what? Could you please do us a favor and leave us a 5-star review or share it with your best friend?
You can check us out at honeywemade.com. You can see our full movie list there as we continue to go through all the Disney movies from 1988 to 2005, including next week when we review JB's 4th favorite movie of all time, The Princess Diaries 2, The Royal Engagement.
It's not including the Disney decade, but besides that, it definitely is. Thank you for listening, and remember, this is the way.